drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News. No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton tonight as ITV News literally puts the Prime Minister behind bars. Why are we letting mainstream media broadcasters actively campaign to subvert democracy? I call for a national discussion about media bias in this country in my digest next, before I get the verdicts of my superstar panel. The Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, senior reporter for the newspaper Benjamin Butterworth, and the broadcaster Bev Turner. As Boris Johnson insists to Angela Rayner that he wasn't behind that controversial Basic Instinct article, is talking about the Labour deputy's clothing really sexist and misogynist? My fiery lineup of TV star Kim Woodburn, model and campaigner Lalani Dowding, and the woman who tonight does have the authority, Jackie Weaver, will battle it out in a blockbuster edition of The Clash at 9:20. Was there really no alternative to lockdown, as Matt Hancock claimed on this very show last week?
But the critical point about lockdown is that it was necessary until the vaccine could make us safe.
The woman he tried to smear, Oxford epidemiologist and co-author of the Great Barrington Declaration, Professor Sunitra Gupta, hits back in Uncancelled at 10:40. After Prince Harry sends shockwaves throughout the world by voicing concerns for the Queen, threatening to shatter the royal peace process.
She's always got a great sense of humour with me, and I'm just making sure that she's, protected and got the right people around.
Well, you make her laugh, that's what she always says.
The father-in-law he's never met, Thomas Markle, gives his first reaction to the runaway Duke's latest bombshell, and he'll make a world-exclusive announcement that will rock the Sussexes. You don't want to miss that, coming up in the next hour. As he prepares to launch an inquiry into whether the NHS gave hormone treatment to vulnerable children, is Sajed Javid right to reportedly compare political sensitivities over gender dysphoria to the fears of racism that prevented the issue of grooming gangs in Rotherham from being addressed? We'll debate at 10. He built a space rocket. But will ridding Twitter of woke authoritarianism be too big a job for even Elon Musk? Neil Oliver weighs in on tonight's seismic deal in The Outsider at 9:45. As women begin trading HRT in car parks, why is the country running out of medicine? Well, positive Professor Carol Sikora breaks that down at 9:30. Plus, as Jacob Rees-Mogg goes to war with lazy civil servants, should employees face a pay cut for working from home? That and much more coming up in the Media Buzz at 10:30. Of course, as ever, you'll get a look at tomorrow's newspapers throughout the show, and I'll reveal the first Greatest Britain and Union Jackass of the week before the night is out. This is Dan Wootton tonight on the original home of free speech, GB News. Let's go. Just one thing first, but it's important. The reason I decided to work for GB News was because I'm a free speech fundamentalist. I had seen how the mainstream media, especially British broadcasters like ITV, where I used to work, and the big tech firms out of San Francisco were actively doing all they could to shut down debate and silence non-woke opinions, even those, by the way, which represent the majority view of the British public. GB News was a real part of the fight back in this country, and 10 months on, we're now keeping the rest of the media honest. And today, a bombshell development that could completely transform freedom of speech online. The billionaire Elon Musk is taking control of Twitter with an anti-woke free speech agenda at the heart of his plans. Now, as he tweeted this evening, I hope that even my worst critics remain on Twitter, because that is what free speech means. Hallelujah! Twitter finally about to be free again. Buckle up, folks, because we're in for an exciting few weeks. If Elon means what he said, Donald Trump will, I imagine, be reinstated to the platform within a matter of days. We're also in for a very exciting 2 hours here with my superstar panel. I promised you, fireworks tonight. Daily Express columnist Carol Malone is here. So too, senior reporter at the newspaper Benjamin Butterworth, and the broadcaster friend of the show, Bev Turner. But before all of that, the news with Polly Middlehurst.
Dan, thank you. The top story tonight on GB News. The UK's Defence Secretary says around 15,000 Russian troops have been killed since President Vladimir Putin ordered the invasion of Ukraine. Ben Wallace made the announcement as he confirmed Britain will send more military hardware to the war-torn country. He says supplying more equipment and ammunition to Ukraine is the most efficient way to help push back Russian troops.
Russia has so far failed in nearly every one of its objectives. In recognition of this failure, the Russian High Command has regrouped, reinforced and changed focus. To date, we have provided more than 5,000 anti-tank missiles, 5 air defence systems with more than 100 missiles, 1,360 anti-structural munitions, 4.5 tonnes of plastic explosives.
Ben Wallace. Well, throughout the day, Moscow has been reportedly bombarding Ukraine's largest city, Kharkiv, and key infrastructure targets as well. Casualties are also being reported after 5 train stations came under fire in the country, including one on the outskirts of Lviv. Ukraine's military command says Russia is attacking train stations to try to halt arms supplies arriving from foreign partners. Meanwhile, plans to create a humanitarian corridor from the steel plant in the besieged southern port city of Mariupol have failed today. It's reported around 1,000 people are still sheltering there. Here at home, GB News can confirm one of the victims stabbed to death in southeast London has been named as healthcare worker Dolly Hill. The 64-year-old was married with 2 daughters and was one of 4 victims in the overnight attack. The 3 women and a man in their 30s, 40s and 60s were all found with injuries at a house in Bermondsey. A man in his 20s has been arrested on suspicion of murder. It's believed that all 5 people knew each other. The Speaker of the House of Commons has requested a meeting with the editor of the Mail on Sunday newspaper. That comes after the paper published what some are calling misogynistic claims about Labour's deputy leader. The Mail on Sunday reported comments by an unnamed Tory MP that Angela Rayner tried to distract Boris Johnson in the Commons by crossing and uncrossing her legs. As you've been hearing, Twitter has accepted Elon Musk's $44 billion offer to buy the social media site. The announcement follows what were reported to be extensive discussions between the Tesla owner and Twitter's board. Musk, who's the world's richest man, previously said Twitter needs to be taken private to grow and become a genuine platform for free speech. On TV, online and on your radio via DAB+, you're with GB News. Now it's time for Dan Wootton Tonight.
It has been another extraordinary few days and the verging on unhinged bid to unseat as Prime Minister the man who secured a massive landslide to deliver Brexit in 2019. This past weekend, the Prime Minister, hating media and the political class, proved they are now officially out of control with a stunning lack of perspective over Boris Johnson, given the challenges facing the UK and the world. I think Tory MPs must hold their nerve because there's a stark difference between reporting on a legitimate story and actively campaigning to subvert democracy. Sadly, we're seeing an overwhelming amount of the latter now, like ITV's Robert Peston seemingly putting Boris Johnson behind bars in a jail cell in his constant battering of the PM during last night's News at 10 broadcast, Thursday night that was, following his patently ridiculous claim that Britain will become an elected dictatorship if the PM remains in office. And none of this shows any sign of abating. The media has decided this story will not go away until Boris is deposed. Look at today's Times front page headline. Grey reports so damning, Boris will have to quit. So this is based on an unnamed official, no doubt another Brexit-hating civil servant, telling the newspaper Sue's report is excoriating. It will make things incredibly difficult for the Prime Minister. There's an immense amount of pressure on her. Her report could be enough to end him. No official has ever been in a position like this before. We're all missing the point, especially when Sly News party gal and COVID rule-breaker-in-chief Beth Rigby is leading the charge on Partygate, reporting over the past few days of political paralysis thanks to this mainstream media obsession.
Did you perform a huge U-turn today and decide to drop an attempt to delay a vote about investigating you by the Privileges Standards Committee? You were worried about a Conservative rebellion, weren't you? Steve Baker, who is a key ally of yours, helped you get elected, a key Brexiteer, said in the Commons today, the PM, it should now be long gone, he should know the gig is up. That must hurt. You said that you have nothing to hide, but you are also under investigation for up to 4 or 5 events you were involved in. Up to 5 more events.
Comment on that.
I know you can't, but you might have more fines. You do accept that. You said on the plane last night, when I said, are there any circumstances in which you might feel that your position is unsustainable or you might have to resign? Are there any circumstances? And you said nothing springs to mind. Do you think that the issues around rule breaking at number 10 doesn't matter to voters?
No, I don't. No, and I apologise.
At all times, did you always think in every single event you were not breaking the rules? So you never thought you broke the rules in any circumstance?
You're asking me.
Do you really believe that the party, that the country will allow you to lead the Conservative Party into the next general election right here, right now? You're absolutely determined to do that.
But you will now be, I think, the first Prime Minister to be investigated for potentially misleading the Houses of Parliament. Very serious, and that could, you would agree, lead to your resignation.
At what point is someone like you going to say, enough is enough? I want to get on with the business of government, and this man, as our leader, is distracting from that. Is there a point you have in your mind?
But does he accept that he broke the rules?
Well, he's accepted that the police have said that the rules were broken, therefore...
No, but does he accept that he broke the rules?
But that is very different.
Does he accept that he broke the rules?
Is there any circumstance in which you would look at those reports and go, OK, fair enough, I'll quit? Do you still think you're an asset to the party? Are you an asset to your party in this election?
And is their calculation that they're safe for the moment, or is their calculation that they genuinely don't think he's done enough wrong to be kicked out? Because we've just been through a whole list of scandals. I mean, it seems there's been one a week, if not one a month.
You're with me, aren't you? We need to have a real discussion about the media bias out of control in this country. Now, some people suggest my position on Partygate is because I'm in some way in the tank for Boris and this Tory government. Those folk have purposefully short memories, given I was one of the PM's biggest critics over lockdowns. The lockdown rules, as I said, by the way, for 2 years, were an inhumane joke, and the PM's current predicament proves why he should have stuck to his libertarian roots and never have allowed his officials and paranoid members of his cabinet inner circle to run out of control. But it's easy to understand why number 10 officials are so frustrated, exasperated and actually genuinely angry with the media, spurred on by Tory rebels with an anti-Boris axe to grind. As Andrew Pearce reports in today's Daily Mail, wrong. Yesterday, a poll found that Labour's lead had fallen to just 2%, while Tory canvassers were reporting back to Number 10 that Partygate was not a big issue on the doorstep when they were campaigning for the local elections on May the 5th. But you'd have no idea of that, looking at virtually any of the mainstream media. Boris has apologised for Partygate 35 times. I am clear, like he is, that this was a huge mistake. It was. But it's not a resignation issue. He didn't believe he was misleading Parliament. The police have been quite frankly political in their approach to the investigation. Meanwhile, the hypocrisy from Keir Starmer remains breathtaking, given his quite obvious breaking of the rules as he downed booze during a so-called work event in Hartlepool in April 2021 and was caught on camera, as you can see there, doing so. As North West Durham MP Richard Holden says, the rules and the way they're interpreted should apply equally to the Prime Minister and to those who seek that office like Keir Starmer, and they should be applied equally by the police, whether Met Police or Durham Police. That's why he's written to his local Chief Constable Joe Farrell, saying there is strong public interest in reviewing the decision not to investigate the Starmer incident further. Not to mention, just 2 weekends ago, scheming Sturgeon getting away with a slap on the wrist from Scottish police and virtually no mainstream media coverage for breaking the nonsensical mask laws she has enforced on her population. So I repeat, we need to have a real discussion about the media bias in this country. To respond now, my superstar panel, the Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, senior reporter at the newspaper Benjamin Butterworth, and the broadcaster Bev Turner. Carol, this is out of hand now.
Totally out of hand. You know, you said before, people on the doorstep, I don't think they much care anymore. I get the fact that people who lost people during lockdown will never forgive Boris. But, you know, because he broke the rules that he enforced. And I get that. I get if you feel that intense loss, you're never going to get over this. But we have to move on. You know, the bottom line is, you know, I keep on thinking about this and thinking, have I got this wrong? But, you know, should a Prime Minister really resign? He had a bit of birthday cake in an office where...
By the way, never left the Tupperware.
No.
Never left the Tupperware. Yeah. He didn't even eat the cake, Carol.
Okay,
he didn't eat the cake. That's important.
They ambushed him with the cake.
And he didn't eat it.
In a room where he was about to have a cabinet meeting with people he works with 18 hours a day. This was 7 weeks after he nearly died with COVID. Do I begrudge him that? Do I think that's a resigning issue? No, I don't. But I think that the MPs who are pushing this, you know, I think they're only 7 letters short now of the amount that it needs to trigger a vote of confidence. This is just evil at a time that, you know, the nation is paralysed in a national and an international crisis. And what these Tory rebels are doing, do they really want Keir Starmer and a ragbag coalition in Downing Street? I should very much hope.
Keir Starmer propped up by Sturgeon.
But what they're doing...
It's enough to give you sleepless nights.
If they get these letters and it goes to a vote of confidence, Boris will win it.
He will win.
Because there has to be 50 MPs, 50% of MPs, who have to vote against it.
He will win, because who's the alternative? And Bev Turner, it's interesting because, like me, you were a staunch opponent of these lockdowns, very publicly opposed to Boris's policy position. But you don't want him to go for this, do you?
Not for this. What I find amazing watching those clips, Dan, and it's so interesting to see it put together like that, because where were those presenters and those journalists holding his feet to the fire over the stuff that mattered?
Well, 2 of them were suspended from work for breaking COVID
You're right.
rules. Yeah.
We've got this great sort of tradition in this country of really fantastic journalism. We are not China. We are not North Korea. And I spent quite a lot of the last 2 years thinking maybe we were. And now I'm watching these presenters and these journalists questioning him about something so trivial. The British public do not really care. Exactly like Carol said, those who lost people have an absolute right to feel angry and let down and betrayed because they were observing the rules when he wasn't. And there was genuine...
But get angry about the lockdown rules. That's what I'm angry about. And let's make sure we never have them again. I mean, Benjamin Butterworth, you look at that package. Even you must admit that Beth Rigby and Kay Burley going on and on and on and on about this is a complete joke, given they never respected the rules.
I would agree with that. You know, they broke the rules and therefore they sort of ceased their opposition opportunity to take the high ground. But ultimately, they're not voted for by the rest of us, and they weren't creating the rules in the first place. You know, the only thing I admire Boris Johnson is that he managed to see a cake and not eat it. That's something I've never managed. But ultimately, it's not about the birthday cake, as you sort of like to trivialise it with. It's about the fact that people were going through the most incredible trauma to do the right thing to keep each other safe during those lockdowns.
Well, it wasn't the right thing.
And
It wasn't the right thing. It was the wrong thing.
Setting the rules wasn't. And I'm sorry, it's like being in a parallel universe here, because both the polling and the reporting shows that most people are still angry with this, including most Conservatives, because most people followed those rules.
But don't you think it's interesting that when I hear people talking about having lost someone, it's almost like they're blaming Boris for the loss of the person they loved. They've transmuted their anger onto that, and that's just not the case.
Well, I actually think the media are exploiting these people, to be honest.
No, I think
because
you're right.
because to use these grieving people who will never get over the fact that they couldn't see their relatives in hospital. But Bev, the point that I want to pick up on, because Matt Hancock did it on the show last week too. Benjamin just said, we were doing the right thing. It wasn't the right thing. The stats now prove that sort of brutal lockdown, the inhumanity of stopping folk being with dying relatives, that was never the right thing.
And throwing the science out of the window, Dan. So, for me, a big part of this story that nobody's talking about is the fact that he had COVID. He had had a very big dose of SARS-CoV-2, which rendered
So he had natural immunity then?
He had natural immunity. So because there's been this weird suppression at the concept that natural immunity even exists, he isn't able to say, for whatever reason, guys, I'd had COVID. I was probably the safest person in that room at the time. But it would be a good enough reason. It would be a good explanation.
But hang on, it isn't the point. I mean, first of all, you know, all the other people at these various events, and there are 5 for which he may get a fine. You know, the interior designer, Lulu What's-Her-Face, she hadn't had COVID, so she could have been passing it on.
But we're not angry with them. We're angry with him for being a potential infection risk. And he wasn't. That's my point. So... listen, nobody is more shocked about the fact that I'm sitting here defending Boris Johnson after the 2 years that we've had. But this is not the reason for him to resign. And frankly, who is waiting in the wings? There's nobody I would want to run the country.
What I think is odd now is the big things. Most of his big decisions have been good ones. You know, Brexit. I agreed with that. You might not, but I did.
I absolutely did.
Yeah, I didn't, but I do now.
Well, yes, and the vaccination rollout was stellar. You know, if Keir Starmer had been in charge, he would have joined the EU's vaccination scheme, and thousands more people...
Oh, and we'd still be muzzled now. We'd still be muzzled now. I mean, Benjamin, surely you can admit the point that a lot of this media posturing is because, as Nadine Dorries said to me last week, these folk just have a visceral hatred of Boris Johnson because of Brexit, and they will not rest until he's out. And I put you in that category too, actually. I do.
Well, I mean, that's pathetic, because I actually think those journalists who are holding the Prime Minister to the truth, something that he has a serious allergy to and has done through his whole career, where he's been sacked for lying time and time again, trying to get the honest answer out of the Prime Minister is important, because it is clear that he misled Parliament.
OK, so if you sat down with Boris Johnson now, if you sat down with Boris Johnson now for the newspaper and you had 8 minutes with him today, would you genuinely tell me, as Beth Rigby did, as a journalist, as an upstanding journalist, that you think you should spend 7.5 minutes of that interview on Partygate and not ask him about Ukraine, and not ask him about the cost of living crisis, and not ask him about the lack of HRT medications in pharmacies and the fact that there's a supply chain crisis? Are you honestly telling me that, Benjamin, that you would spend 7.5 minutes on Partygate?
Well, the truth is there really any point asking Boris Johnson for the truth? You know when he's lying, because his lips move and he just continues to lie. And the other point is that to say that it's just the media promoting this somehow is wrong, because his own MPs continue to lose faith. Steve Baker, literally one of the most Brexity Tories in Parliament, who led the hard Brexit agenda, has said he doesn't have faith in Boris Johnson. So you can't possibly claim this is some kind of Remain plot. Brexit's...
Final word, Carol. Final word, Carol.
Those Tories moving against him are stupid, because actually he will...
Well, they're listening to constituents.
Boris is the only one that can take the red wall voters, and if we don't have them, the Tories...
He's the best hope of securing Brexit long-term. Carol Malone, Benjamin Butterworth, Bev Turner, my superstar panel, and they're here all night. But coming up, as an HRT shortage, as I just mentioned, sparks suicide fears and forces women to barter for supplies in car parks. Why is the country running out of medicine? Well, positive Professor Carol Sikora has been investigating. He will break down that unfolding crisis soon. But up next, as Boris Johnson insists that he wasn't behind that controversial Basic Instinct article, is talking about Angela Rayner's clothing really an example of, quote, sexism and misogynism? Well, TV star Kim Woodburn, model and campaigner Lilani Dowding and infamous councillor Jackie Weaver will battle it out on what promises to be a very fiery clash next. But what do you think on this one? Email me, dan@gbnews.uk, tweet me at GBNews. We've got a poll running there too. The results coming up in mere minutes.
Good evening, Alex Deakin here with your latest weather update from the Met Office. Pretty chilly tonight, so a fresh start tomorrow. Many of us having a dry day and some places having a sunny day, but others will be quite cloudy. High pressure is in control of our weather, but it's sitting up to the north, and around it the winds are coming down from the north, hence why it is going to be pretty chilly overnight. Not too strong, the winds, though, and as we have clear skies for the majority, that will allow those temperatures to tumble. We will see increasing cloud over northern Scotland, a few showers here and there across the far northeast, but for most it will be a dry night. Temperatures, as I said, will be falling away. 3 or 4, that's towns and cities. Rural spots not far off freezing, with some places dipping a touch below. So a cold start to Tuesday, but for many a dry and a bright start, quite a bit of sunshine around. Quite cloudy over eastern Scotland. That cloud will spread through central Scotland, northeast England, with a few showers likely here in the morning. That cloud thickening as it pushes south into parts of the Midlands and eastern England during the day. Under the cloud, feeling quite cold. Temperatures just 9 or 10 at best, but with some sunny spells further south and west. Mid-teens with light winds in the sunny spells. Shouldn't feel too chilly, but temperatures will again drop off through Tuesday evening quite sharply under the clear skies. Any showers fading away, and again just a hint of blue there on the chart, northern England, parts of Scotland. So again a frosty start for some on Wednesday morning. Again, by and large, another fine day, but again it will be eastern parts that keep a lot of cloud through the day. Maybe the odd light shower, but the vast majority dry. A brighter day for eastern Scotland, southern Scotland, and some good sunny spells for Wales and the southwest. And again, a bit of sunshine sees those temperatures up into the mid-teens, but the eastern areas staying just 9, 10, 11 Celsius. The high pressure, though, is sticking around, sitting across the UK for much of this week, keeping things largely dry, but with a continued risk of nighttime frost.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewbury, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewbury, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's 2 questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News. Our positive Professor Carol Sikora and Neil Oliver coming up. But time now for The Clash. And breaking tonight, Commons Speaker Sir Lindsay Hoyle has demanded a meeting with the Mail on Sunday editor to discuss the decision to publish a controversial article about Angela Rayner. The paper facing furious backlash for running claims by anonymous MPs that the Deputy Labour leader likes to put the Prime Minister off his stride in the chamber by crossing and uncrossing her legs when they clash at Prime Minister's questions. An unknown source told the paper she knows she can't compete with Boris's Oxford Uni in debating training, but she has other skills which he lacks. She has admitted as much when enjoying drinks with us on the Commons terrace. Now, the Sunday paper is also under fire for drawing comparisons to a famous erotic scene from the 1992 film Basic Instinct, where Sharon Stone seduces Michael Douglas. And, of course, a furious Angela Rayner slammed the claims as perverted lies, with the Prime Minister today joining a chorus of condemnation.
I thought it was the most appalling load of sexist, misogynist tripe, and I immediately got in touch with Angela, and we had a very friendly exchange. And if we ever find who was responsible for it, I don't know what we'll do with them, but we'll be the terrors of the earth. But it's totally intolerable, that kind of thing.
Now look, while I get that any controversial article should be criticised, I think it's a chilling assault on free speech actually to pressurise a media outlet, a highly credible media outlet and a very good newspaper, The Mail on Sunday, into revealing a source or restrict what they publish. The Speaker should quite frankly butt out and let newspapers publish what they please and what they deem to be news. What do you think? As this row rumbles on, is talking about Angela Rayner's clothing sexist and misogynist? Send in your thoughts to Dan at gbnews.uk, tweet them to me at gbnews, and while you're there you can vote in our Twitter poll. But weighing in on this now, we have the former glamour model, social commentator Leilani Dowding, TV cleaning guru Kim Woodburn, and the viral sensation chief officer at Cheshire Association of Local Councils, Jackie Weaver. Leilani, look, I know people have had views on this article, but is there actually anything sexist about it? I mean, at the end of the day, surely a newspaper's job is to report and to bring into the public sphere what MPs are saying privately.
I don't think it's sexist or misogynist at all. I think it's ridiculous and it's childish at the worst. But I feel like the media want to, or other people just want to create a whole scandal and blow things out of proportion, especially when it comes to Boris at the moment. And to be quite honest, it's a lot of it's all become very he said, she said, a bit like Towie. But this is politics and it's just getting all a bit silly.
Jackie Weaver, you say this is sexist and you're angry about it, though.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really do angry. I'm unhappy about it. I mean, when you think about it, if we're now saying that this is just what we expect, then that's just appalling. And I think you're absolutely right. We do expect it, and so we don't react to it when we see it. I mean, can you imagine any time we talk about a woman, the first thing we comment about is what she's wearing? First thing. Doesn't matter what incredible thing she's done or what she says, the first thing we do is talk about her clothes. And then the second part is the message. And we don't even recognise that that is wrong. That is really unfair, because we most definitely don't comment on a man's appearance before we start to listen to what he's saying.
Kim Woodburn, where do you stand on this one?
I think your ladies made very good points. In a way, I do agree. But can we not recall the time a few weeks ago when sweet, loving Angela Rayner called Boris Johnson absolute scum and every Tory MP absolute scum? That is what she said. She was made to apologise by Keir Starmer. She is, after all, the Shadow Chancellor. That sort of talk, disgusting. OK, so she insulted them by calling them scum. So why is there any offence going on here? All this is, ladies, is tittle-tattle. It's a bunch of Conservative MPs who thought, how dare you call us scum? It's on your mind. And they've got together, chatting away like the boys do. It's been over, the police saying, well, at least we're not flashing our legs like she does. They know she doesn't flash her legs. But they can't, when did you call somebody scum? They're getting back at her. Now, it's got to the newspapers with Dave and Dylan. It's got to the newspapers. It's a load of rubbish. But please let us remember what she said about Boris Johnson and the whole of the Conservative Party. So this is no lady.
Well, Jackie Weaver, I think that's a very fair point, actually, because it's sort of ironic, isn't it, for Angela Rayner, who, as Kim points out, has really coarsened, I would say, the dialogue in politics as a result of her scum comments. It's a bit ironic of her to be so up in arms, is it not?
I guess, first of all, I absolutely agree. I mean, I remember the comment. I remember being absolutely shocked to hear somebody talk like that. I don't care what.
Vile.
It really was. However, we can't just have a situation where we only defend the virtuous women. So it's kind of like only if we're justifying that you are a good person who always says the right thing, then it's appropriate for society to protect you. And one of the things, I say, goes back to what I said before, that really troubles me. And I guess that, I'm a certain age. I've grown up with things that we have just accepted as women over the years. So much so that, our kind of attitude is very often, well, it didn't make me bleed, so it's okay. And I think that actually we deserve more in the modern world than that. It isn't enough to say, I'm not going to die from it. We really do deserve to be treated the same way as men, particularly when we're engaging with the media.
Yeah, but Leilani, though, I'm sorry. Sorry, Kim.
Scum. How do we expect them? Most of them are men. We call them all utter scum, which is the filth of the earth. And she expects you to be sweet about her. You get what you give. She's no wilting flower. And the position she's got to be talking like that, she shouldn't have the position. And this started with tittle-tattle with the Conservatives. Oh, she's showing her legs. They know she wasn't. But it's men's talk. And as for saying she's sitting there like Sharon had no drawers on, dear. And plus the fact that was Boris there with exploding wide fronts? Are we rather exaggerating this above all? It's ridiculous.
Yes, of course we are. But that's what newspapers do. Of course we're exaggerating. But I hear your point, Kim. Leilani, I wanted to make another point on this, that I actually think there's a lot of rank hypocrisy going on when we say that we only talk about female appearances in the media. I'm sorry, I have seen so many vile newspaper articles over the past few months about Boris Johnson's weight, about his hairstyle, about his clothes. And by the way, I think he's fair game. He's the Prime Minister. But let's not pretend for a second, Leilani, that we only comment on female appearances of our politicians, because we don't. We comment on the appearance of Boris all the time.
Absolutely, 100%. We're always talking about how scruffy he is, always talking about how scruffy his hair is and how he looks as though he's just got out of bed 2 minutes ago. So it's not something that's only just exclusive to female politicians. And to be honest, I've not really heard that many female politicians being talked about their appearances. And, this is a whole thing of her crossing and uncrossing her legs. It's just so ridiculous. And it actually, more power to her if she can actually distract Boris by doing so. As Kim said, it was Sharon Stone, had no knickers on. So no one's even talking about whether she did or whether she didn't. They're saying that someone's crossed and uncrossed their legs. And to be honest, it's more of a joke on Boris than her, really. And for everyone to be so take such offence over it. It's just so nauseating. And it's
because, Kim, isn't the issue here that we're going to become too scared to talk about anything, Kim, to ever comment on a female politician whatsoever, because we're going to be cancelled like the poor political editor of The Mail on Sunday, who, by the way, can I just say, Glenn Owen, he is a brilliant journalist. And now the woke mob are trying to cancel him.
But I want to know why we listen to these woke idiots. They're absolute. I'm 80 years of age. I've been through life like everybody else. They want to get a life. The bloody idiots. They're stupid.
Who are you referring to, Kim? The woke mob?
The woke mob. They want to get a life, silly bitches. I'm sorry, I've got no time for them. We have got the Ukraine war. We have got the NHS. People are dying for lack of surgery. We've had COVID. We've got the economy. Last week, no, 2 weeks ago, I got a letter. Now, I'm lucky I made a few bob on television. I'm ever so grateful. I'm ever so grateful. I had not a pot to pee in when I started. I could have been like them. I got a letter from the pension scheme last week. Dear Mrs. Woodburn, we are going to give you a raise, now you're 80, of 25 pence a week. What? 25 pence a week. So every 4 weeks you'll get £1 extra on your pension because you're 80. Please, if you challenge this, would you kindly write back to us? The postage stamp's 75 pence. Now, look.
Good point.
Don't stop. Because we've got to stop picking on everybody. Leave Boris alone. Because I'll tell you something. I speak to many people. Nobody can stomach Keir Starmer. No. If they like the Labour Party, the people that have said to me this, I'm not lying, this is true, they've said to me, Kim, we voted Labour all our life. Many people, they've said, you know why I won't vote Labour? Can't stomach Keir Starmer. The man has no personality. He's extremely dislikable, whether he means to be or not. And all he ever says, we'll have it tomorrow in the papers.
Let Jackie respond.
He only wants to be the Prime Minister.
Jackie, you respond to that.
Female empowerment back 20 years with the conversation we've just had. You know, if we're actually saying to young women, if you're able to use sex to your advantage in a debate, then go for it. I mean, I think that is such an offensive thing to say to all our marvellous female politicians that have got to where they are, not by using their assets, but by using their brains.
Leilani?
Well, we don't know that, dear, do we?
About how
we don't know that. I'm not going to go into that because if you want a hot or pearly, hot or
just let Leilani come in. Let Leilani come in.
Sorry, I was just saying it's not always about your education levels or how far you got in university. It's about your, you know, it could be about how personable you are, how charming you are, or even diversity quotas. So it's not always just about your education levels. There's so many other things. And you know what? I don't actually think that she was able to distract Boris in any way, crossing and uncrossing her legs. But if she was, I mean, wow, that's pretty powerful.
Good point. Good point. Well, I appreciated this debate because I think we've covered issues that the rest of the mainstream media have been too scared to tackle around this. That was the former glamour model, now social commentator Leilani Dowdy, the TV guru Kim Woodburn. Yes, Kim, final word.
Call in Mr. Dillon for an interview. There's so much more we've got to do. Get the.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, and also, we have something called freedom of the press in this country. He should be able to publish whatever he wants. That's Kim Woodburn, the viral sensation. And another viral sensation, Chief Officer at the Cheshire Association of Local Councils, Jackie Weaver. Thank you all. So who do you agree with there? There's Jackie. Well, Michelle says on Twitter, she should learn to dress appropriately for the role she is in. This is on Rayner, not Jackie. I do not expect male MPs in shorts, therefore she should not have all of her legs on show. From Stuart, of course it's sexist. It's an easy way for right-wing media to attack their opposition, anything to take the attention away from Boris and the mess he's in. And from Poppy, Angela Rayner's clothing was inappropriate. Talking about this is not sexist or misogynistic. We want to see our MPs, both men and women, dressed respectfully. And your verdict is now in. Just 35% of you. Gosh, this is interesting because if you look at the rest of the media, you'd think it was the entire country. But just 35% of you agree that talking about Angela Rayner's clothing is in any way sexist or misogynistic. 65% of you say it's not. Coming up, as Elon Musk tonight seals a £35 billion deal to buy Twitter, is the platform beyond saving? Even with the SpaceX billionaire in control, Neil Oliver will weigh in on this massive developing story in The Outsider at 9:45. But first, as 2/3 of pharmacies face daily supply shortages and women are forced to trade HRT in car parks, is it too late to prevent a medicine crisis? Our positive Professor Carol Sikora investigates next.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewbury, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewbury, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Big announcement from Thomas Markle on the way, but first, our positive Professor Carol Sikora, and a shortage of hormone replacement therapy could lead to women taking their own lives, a charity has warned. As reported on the Daily Mail front page today, oestrogen gel has been in critically short supply since January, and it's feared that without HRT, some women will lose jobs, marriages, or become depressed and even suicidal. Some women have reportedly become so desperate that they've resorted to rationing their prescriptions, swapping treatments in car parks for estrogen, or turning to the black market. Well, Health Secretary Sajid Javid yesterday announced he would appoint a new HRT czar to tackle the crisis. But Katie Lee from the Latte Lounge support group has warned that could be too late. Drugs to treat cancer, common fertility problems and heart conditions are also among those in short supply, and ministers are blaming disruption caused by the pandemic for the shortages. Research shows that more than two-thirds of pharmacists are now battling medication shortages, with one pharmacist describing it as the worst supply crisis he's seen in his 30 years career. Well, Carol joins me now. Carol, why are we suffering such worrying shortages, and how do we fix this problem?
So it's difficult. It's been around for 10 years, but it's getting worse and worse. And it's not the expensive drugs. You know, we have drugs we use for cancer, £10,000 a month they cost to give. They're not a problem. It's the common drugs that are cheap and cheerful. They were made maybe 50 years ago first, and they're very good still for certain types of cancer. The same with HRT and other pills around. It's the ingredients that make them. You know, I've been round a pharmaceutical plant in Macclesfield, a massive one, and a man with a spade puts in white chemicals at the top, ammonia, potassium chlorate, a few other things get put in, and out comes, with a lot of skilled chemical engineering, out comes the perfect drug, which is then made into a tablet or into a bottle to inject. So the problem is getting those ingredients, and it's a very strange thing. It's a supply chain problem. It's not the transport, it's not lorry drivers, it's just accessing the basic chemicals from which drugs are made. And I'm afraid politicians can huff and puff as much as they like, but they have no control on that. And I think we have to look more seriously at how we source the ingredients of vital drugs like HRT.
Well, indeed. I mean, estrogen and HRT, Carol, seem to be one of the main focuses now. This estrogen gel, have you heard about these reports that it's sort of been traded by women on the black market? I mean, that shouldn't be happening in the UK, should it?
No, and people shopping around multiple pharmacies. You know, the pharmacy system in this country is wonderful. If they don't have it in stock, they'll get it within 24 hours. And that's been my experience for my patients and even for myself and family. Many countries don't do that. They just say, we have to go looking for it. So if you can source it in 24 hours, most people will put up with that. But if you can't get it at all, and you just have to go running round and then resorting to the black market, this is no way to run pharmaceutical services. And it's not the pharmacist's fault. I'll be first to agree. It's not the prescribing doctor's fault. It's the fact that the pharmaceutical world that makes generic drugs, that's drugs that have come off patent, don't make so much money as the big boys that sell the breakthrough medicines that we hear about all the time. HRT's been around as long as I've been a doctor, which, Dan, is a long time. So there's no doubt that, it can't be that these drugs are going to be very pricey. And that's the problem. Pills that cost less than 5p a pill, no one's really going to make a huge amount of profit. And so they're not concerned about it. The big industry is not concerned about it. So someone else has to be. And that's the problem. Doctors don't know about it. We don't understand on the whole. Most doctors haven't been around a pharmaceutical processing plant, and they don't understand the raw ingredients, which, are really sacks of white powders. I mean, it's an amazing sight to see how you get something so sophisticated out of several sacks of white powder and a spade shoveling them into a funnel at the top, and out comes the pill at the bottom. It's amazing.
It is absolutely fascinating process, and thank you for breaking it down for us, Carol. It's going to be a difficult few weeks if your medicine is out of stock. Coming up, as he prepares to launch an inquiry into whether the NHS gave hormone treatment to vulnerable children, is Sajid Javid right to reportedly compare political sensitivities over gender dysphoria to the fears of racism that prevented the issue of grooming gangs in Rotherham from being addressed? We'll debate that and more in the Media Buzz at 10 p.m. You'll also get a first look at tomorrow's front pages of the newspapers then too. But next, he sent a rocket into space, but will restoring free speech on Twitter be too big a job for even Elon Musk? Well, Neil Oliver weighs in on what's poised to be a seismic deal in The Outsider. Neil's here right after the break.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewbury, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewbury, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you, or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
A first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages coming up, and Neil Oliver is tonight's outsider. And breaking tonight, Elon Musk has agreed a £35 billion deal to buy Twitter. The monumental agreement means the world's richest man is at the helm of a company with 217 million users and one which hugely influences the political and the media agenda, even though I know most sane folk don't want to go anywhere near it. Quite rightly too. So, the SpaceX tycoon earlier hinted that the deal was completed when he tweeted, "I hope that even my worst critics remain on Twitter because that is what free speech means." Twitter's board had spent 2 weeks trying to fend off the Tesla CEO's bid, but they warmed to the sale after Musk last week revealed he'd lined up a funding package including the backing of banking giant Morgan Stanley. Musk has repeatedly vowed to save it from liberal authoritarians and turn it into an arena for genuine freedom of expression, branding himself a free speech absolutist. Well, Neil Oliver, I mean, for me, this is fantastic news, absolutely great news. But can Elon Musk alone really save free speech online?
Well, Dan, I would echo your optimism, but that's the $64,000 question, if not the $44 billion question. Ultimately, we'll just have to wait and see, because it's unknowable exactly what he plans to do with Twitter. First, you're right. Twitter has been a hellscape for years. It's like ducking for apples in an open sewer. But it's just that it offers such reach that a lot of us feel obliged to hold our noses and jump in and swim like crazy for survival and make the best of it. The first thing that my first reaction was that the wailing and gnashing of teeth of all those voices that came out so bitterly opposed to his promise to return free speech to Twitter. That was a joy to behold. It was one of those classic examples of him annoying all the right people, and that Elon Musk's offer to do this, to return freedom of speech to a social media platform, was so furiously received. That was almost joy enough on its own. It's that lack of self-awareness amongst the people who are being so trenchant in their criticism, because they're quite openly declaring that Twitter should be controlled by rich technocrats. They just don't want it to be anyone but themselves. Those that feel they've got control of the platform, or they like the ways and means of the group that is controlling Twitter, they're perfectly happy with it being censorious and about cancelling and all the rest of the accusations that are levelled at Twitter. They just don't want an outsider, coming in and being the new owner. But we'll just have to watch. It's such a tantalising prospect. It could be great. It could be the return of an open sharing of ideas on a social media platform. But the proof of the pudding will be in the eating, as they say.
Ducking for apples in a running sewer. I love the way you put things here. A very good way to describe Twitter, I would agree. Surely, Neil, if Elon Musk is serious about his free speech absolutist approach, the first thing he needs to do is reinstate all of those folk who Twitter have banned over the past few weeks. Now, of course, the most famous of them all is the former President Donald Trump, but there's also folk who we have spoken to, like Robert Malone, the acclaimed scientist who happened to have a different view on the COVID vaccine, for example. There's people who have spoken out against the woke trans orthodoxy. They all have to be reinstated, don't they, Neil?
Yes, Donald Trump, previously the leader of the free world, that he was shut down on Twitter was just ludicrous. And then, of a person of a different sort altogether, Robert Malone, yes, just a questioning voice who had another take on efficacy and the appropriate use of the COVID-19 vaccines or not. Yes, they must be allowed back in. It is fascinating. There's no getting away from the fact that free speech can be interpreted countless different ways. What do you mean? What is it? Should there be any kind of censorship at all? Should it be an unmonitored free-for-all? This is all up for debate. But that's the thing. It's being pitched as a happy ending that Elon Musk has bought Twitter, and it might be. it's definitely the potential for the beginning of something new, but we have to wait and watch. I mean, we live in a world in which individuals, a handful of individuals, own and control so much, almost everything. That is the reality. You know, back in the 60s and 70s, when the internet was being established, the utopian dream was that it would be all open source, sharing, no owners, everyone equal. That never happened. It was the US military that financed it in the beginning, so it was probably never going to happen. And it's probably not ideal that any given individual owns and controls something so powerful, but then it was ever thus. You know, the newspapers and television channels, what were previously the ways in which information was broadly circulated and shared, they've always been owned by rich men. That's been in the nature of papers. It's been in the nature of TV channels. You know, look at the Murdoch empire and all the rest of it. It's probably not ideal that one person has it. And as you say, Morgan Stanley are part of the funding package because Musk apparently wasn't rich enough on his own to just go and buy Twitter off the shelf. So that means you've got a huge funding, banking organisation, a corporate, run by a board, for profit. You know, they're involved in it as well, and that will presumably have implications that will come with it. But at the moment, it's an optimistic sign. There was a stranglehold, there was a chokehold on Twitter. It was censorious, and arbitrary bans were being handed out left, right, and centre, and they always seem to be banning the same people for more or less the same reasons, just speaking out against someone's idea of an orthodoxy, an approved narrative. And if Elon Musk can bring it back to being some kind of open square where people can legitimately share ideas, argue, debate, then let's look on the bright side and hope that he lets the little blue bird of Twitter out of its cage.
Yes, out of its cage, the bird is free. Very good points, Neil Oliver. I would just say there's a lot to be unpicked within that organisation, of course, because it's embedded.
That's very interesting also, because there's been lots of allegations about, algorithms and shadow banning.
Yeah.
There was all sorts of nefarious stuff going on, or was it not? Well,
exactly.
Now would be an opportunity to see if there was any basis of truth on that.
Exactly. But there needs to be new leadership, I think, in that company, which hopefully there now will be. Neil Oliver, fascinating analysis. We'll speak next week, Neil. And of course, Neil is back with his own show Saturday nights here on GBNews. It's 10 p.m. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, after Prince Harry sends shockwaves throughout the world by voicing concerns for the Queen, threatening to shatter the royal peace process.
She's always got a great sense of humour with me, and I'm just making sure that she's, protected and got the right people around.
Well, you make her laugh. That's what she always says.
Well, the father-in-law he's never met, Thomas Markle, gives his first reaction to the runaway Duke's latest bombshell, and he'll make a world-exclusive announcement of his own that will rock the Sussexes. You won't want to miss that, coming up in just 20 minutes. Was there really no alternative to lockdown, as Matt Hancock claimed on my lockdown inquiry last week?
But the critical point about lockdown is that it was necessary until the vaccine could make us safe.
Well, the woman he tried to smear, Oxford epidemiologist and co-author of the Great Barrington Declaration, the brilliant Professor Sunitra Gupta, hits back. She's uncancelled at 10:40. As he prepares to launch an inquiry into whether the NHS gave hormone treatment to vulnerable children, is Sajid Javid right to reportedly compare political sensitivities over gender dysphoria to the fears of racism that prevented the issue of grooming gangs in Rotherham from being addressed? I'll debate with my superstar panel next. Tonight, the Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, senior reporter at the newspaper Benjamin Butterworth, and the broadcaster Bev Turner. As Jacob Rees-Mogg goes to war with lazy civil servants, should employees face a pay cut for working from home? And what unspeakable proposal did this Extinction Rebellion anarchists make to combat climate change?
I don't understand about climate deniers is why they think raking in the petrochemical money is so much more important than my grandchild and their children and their grandchildren.
Look, when I tell you what this woman is proposing, you're going to realise that these Extinction Rebellion eco-terrorists should be stamped down upon. That's coming up in the Media Buzz at 10:30. Plus, should all A-list celebrities shell out for menopause mentors? The Hollywood wokey who made that suggestion is in the running for tonight's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass just before the hour is out. Don't forget, we'll bring you a first look at tomorrow's newspapers too, coming up next and throughout the rest of the hour. But first, the news with Polly Middlehurst.
Dan, thank you. The top story tonight on GB News. The UK's Defence Secretary says around 15,000 Russian troops have been killed since President Vladimir Putin ordered the invasion of Ukraine. Ben Wallace made the announcement as he confirmed Britain will send more military hardware to the war-torn country. He says supplying more equipment and ammunition to Ukraine is the most efficient way to help push back Russian troops.
Russia has so far failed in nearly every one of its objectives. In recognition of this failure, the Russian High Command has regrouped, reinforced and changed focus. To date, we have provided more than 5,000 anti-tank missiles, 5 air defence systems with more than 100 missiles, 1,360 anti-structural munitions, 4.5 tonnes of plastic explosives.
Ben Wallace. Well, the Department for International Trade says monitoring equipment which could be used to spy on Ukrainian citizens will be banned from being exported to Russia. That comes as the government says it would remove tariffs or quotas on Ukrainian imports to help maintain their economy whilst the war continues. President Zelensky has made a direct request to the UK to help with the export of Ukrainian barley, honey, tinned tomatoes and poultry. Here in the UK, GB News can confirm one of the victims stabbed to death in south-east London has been named as healthcare worker Dolly Hill. The 64-year-old was married with 2 daughters and was one of 4 victims in the overnight attack. 3 women and a man in their 30s, 40s and 60s were found with injuries at a home in Bermondsey. A man in his 20s has been arrested on suspicion of murder. It's believed that all 5 people knew each other. The Speaker of the House of Commons has requested a meeting with the editor of the Mail on Sunday. That comes after the newspaper published what some are calling misogynist claims about Labour's deputy leader. The Mail on Sunday reported comments by an unnamed Tory MP that Angela Rayner tried to distract Boris Johnson in the Commons by crossing and uncrossing her legs. And Twitter has accepted Elon Musk's $44 billion offer to buy the social media site. The announcement follows what were reported to be extensive discussions between the Tesla owner and Twitter's board. Musk, who's the world's richest man, previously said Twitter needs to be taken private to grow and become a genuine platform for free speech. On TV, online and on your radio via DAB+. You're with GB News. Time now for more from Dan Wootton tonight.
Tomorrow's news tonight now in our Media Buzz. The first front pages are in. Let's get straight to them. The Independent lead with a call to suspend all MPs who are guilty of misogyny. The paper reports that Parliament's most senior female MP, Harriet Harman, wants to make misogyny a punishable offence in the House of Commons amid backlash over comments made by an anonymous Tory MP about Angela Rayner's legs. Musk pays a tweet £35 billion for Twitter is the Metro's puntastic headline. As I've just discussed with Neil Oliver, the world's richest person used his stake in his electric car company Tesla to help him secure funding to purchase the social media site. Since the news broke, Musk has brilliantly reiterated his pledge to make Twitter a genuine platform for free speech. And in my view, that means Trump should be back on Twitter before the year is out. My superstar panel back with me now. The Daily Express columnist Carol Malone, the senior reporter at the newspaper Benjamin Butterworth, who I'm sure is very disturbed about that prospect, and the broadcaster Bev Turner. Now, this is an important one. Sajid Javid has ordered an urgent review of gender treatment for under 18s, reportedly comparing political fears over the trans issue to silence during the Rotherham grooming scandal. The Health Secretary says vulnerable children are worryingly being given gender hormone treatment on the NHS, with a senior government source telling The Times Javid believes there is the same theme of not being afraid to tackle issues that others might prefer not to talk about. Referrals for child hormone treatment at the Tavistock and Portman Trust have increased 50-fold in the last decade, and the Health Secretary is understood to have been alarmed at the interim findings of a review into NHS gender identity services for children. It found staff felt pressured to adopt an unquestioning affirmative approach to the issue of transitioning, and gender issues caused other mental health issues to be overshadowed. Javid is understood to be preparing legal changes that would give the report author access to an NHS database of children treated by the service to see how many later regretted taking puberty blockers and less reversible cross-sex hormones. So as the Health Secretary tackles this toxic issue of gender identity, was he right to compare political sensitivities over gender dysphoria to the fears of racism in Rotherham over grooming gangs, Bev Turner?
I think it's an interesting comparison to make, and it took me a little while to work out what he was getting at. And what's happened is Hilary Cass, she's the former president of the Royal College of Paediatrics and Child Health. She's been leading this review for Sajid Javid. Is this review necessary? Absolutely. It feels like this particular issue has gained such speed and such momentum. As you say, the numbers now of children who are going for gender reassignment surgery are so huge and have gone up so much in the last decade. And yet I feel like I don't understand it. And what I want to do, I want to hear from the parents of a child who has transitioned young. I want to hear what their journey is genuinely like. I want to hear from somebody who has had their gender transitioned and then regretted it. I want to hear from somebody who hasn't regretted it, who transitioned young. Because we all have strong opinions. We know our instinct is that this is wrong on many levels, that children should not be given adult decision-making powers, too young in many areas, particularly irreversible surgery. But I don't really feel like we're hearing from the people who are at the coalface. So I think this report is a brilliant idea so that we can get to understand the position of these families, because there's no doubt this must be awful. But do you know what? Teenagers and young children are very suggestive. And there are times with the child, if they're trying to get their parents' attention, if they are trying to be the coolest kid in class, because let me tell you, as a mum of 3, this is a topic they talk about a lot. And all of my children have somebody in their year who is non-binary. This is all, you know, this is normal for them now. It's the new thing. And children
I think a lot of these people, let's be frank, are confused about their sexuality. Because when the hormones are running and, you know, I've been through this. I know what it's like, and that's why I'm so concerned about this. But Benjamin Butterworth, you don't think it's the wrong thing, do you?
I mean, I think the idea of comparing it to the profound and long-running, unpleasant and ugly situation in Rotherham, that's designed purely to be inflammatory, and I don't see that hate helps any young person. Look, first of all, no under 18 gets gender reassignment surgery. That's not legal until 18, and the puberty blockers are reversible because they delay the process, and so someone could still come off them and have the puberty they would have. Look, the truth is that there are a very small number of cases where someone has regretted it or felt that the system wasn't good enough.
That's not true.
And so in those cases...
True.
Well, I'm talking,
Carol. It's not a small
Carol.
number of cases.
Well,
I don't care if you're
you can
talking.
Speak in a minute. It is a small number.
You've just said something like, it is not a small number.
It is a very small number because there are thousands of people on the waiting list. And so I'd say 2 quick things. One is that if there are mistakes happening, well, the answer, which strangely none of these people suggest, is that there should be better funded. There should be more doctors and counsellors in the process to stop the kind of mistake that Bev suggested could happen. And, you know, the other thing is that...
not worried
if you talk about people who regretted their decision, what about all the people who don't get that far, who needed it? They need to be thought about.
These medical professionals feel scared. They feel pushed into an orthodoxy, like this woke orthodoxy that's taking over all of our institutions.
A psychiatrist called David Bell, who worked with the Tavistock and Portman Trust, which is the one that's been criticised. It's the NHS Gender Reassignment Clinic. He did this massive report. He worked there, and this report was shocking. You know, he came out and was saying that kids as young as 3 and 4 were being taken there, and kids of under 18 were getting treatment. He just said the staff were terrified to speak out. The guy who was running the Tavistock, a guy called Marcus Evans. He had to resign amid all the claims that kids were being pushed into the surgery by doctors. You could have...
You don't get surgery, that's not true.
OK, you start on the puberty blocks. So we're being pushed into treatment by doctors. Some of
Which
them
does
after,
eventually lead to surgery.
Some of them
But no under 18 can
some
have
of them
surgery.
after just one assessment. And you know what's happening? And a girl called Charlie Evans, who was born a girl and lived 10 years as a man, she's now started up a group now for detransitioners. In America, the detransitioner groups, it's the big thing. Transition regret, they're calling it, is a big thing in the States now. And it's going to become a big thing here in the same way that the percentages are increasing for people going to talk about, at these clinics. It's the same thing about people who regret it. So it isn't small numbers. Charlie Evans said the first time she talked about it publicly, she said in her hometown, Newcastle, she literally had hundreds of people contacting her saying they regretted, because a lot of these kids who pitch up at this clinic or these clinics, they've got other issues. They've got eating disorders. They're suffering from bereavement issues.
Mental health issues.
But that's why the
Autism.
process should be much better funded. There are huge backlogs and huge pressure on the people that have to make these decisions.
Funding, it's more psychology before you start throwing jugs at kids.
But that's why there should be a much better system. There should be more clinics, more counsellors, more doctors to make these assessments. Surely you agree with that?
More transition.
But how can you argue that if there are mistakes happening, that the answer there is to have a better process?
Final word,
Not necessarily, because the Tavistock Clinic do the counselling. They do the therapy with the children. They have a huge backlog. And if anybody from the clinic was here, they would say, give us more money, we can get through people more quickly. But I think Sajid Javid's point about the fact that there is perhaps a fear because everybody isn't automatically... They don't feel able to step away from what feels like a bit of a bandwagon, right?
Oh, give it a rest.
The trans lobby has... Give what a rest, Benjamin.
The anti-trans lobby. Give this rest. The idea that transgender people are somehow controlling the media.
Transgender...
Nonsense. When did you last hear from a transgender person talking about this?
I was telling this exact story, though. When I was covering for Michelle last week, I was telling a story that I was due to speak on International Women's Day at a legal firm, and I was cancelled by a trans activist who worked at the firm because they didn't like a tweet that I had liked, which was a link to a national newspaper. Now, I never had a conversation with that person. I wish I could have done, and maybe I should go back and revisit it, because this is what I'm saying. We all feel strongly about it. Cancel culture is happening because of trans activists.
Name these powerful transgender people. Name them.
Oh, that's just a stupid thing
It's
to
not
say.
a stupid thing, because if you claim that transgender people have all this power...
We don't do your gotcha questions, mate.
It's not a gotcha.
Get your own show and you can do your crap gotcha questions.
It's not a gotcha.
We don't do them on this panel.
Do you know what's
It's not a
terrible
gotcha, it's a fact.
From the trans lobby, the kids who are now detransitioning, they're being victimised and shunned by the trans lobby, and they're being called traitors because of...
Well, you've got no evidence. I'm waiting for the evidence.
A spokesman for Tavistock and Portman NHS Foundation Trust said being respectful of someone's identity does not preclude exploration. We agree that support should be holistic, based on the best available evidence, and that no assumption should be made about the right outcome for any given young person. Now, latest footage of Vladimir Putin has added to the swelling rumours that he could be suffering from Parkinson's disease. Since the invasion of Ukraine, there's been much speculation about the Russian president's physical and mental strength, especially after this video from last week, which showed him slouching in his chair, gripping the table and tapping his foot frantically. And yesterday, while Putin attended a midnight mass service for Orthodox Easter, eagle-eyed viewers noticed that he was chewing the inside of his mouth, indicating a dry mouth, which is, among other conditions, a symptom of Parkinson's. Well, it may not be absolute proof, but it's certainly one to keep an eye on. Meanwhile, one gentleman who is absolutely thriving in his golden years is the Coronation Street legend, William Roach. Can you believe it? The soap star celebrating his birthday today, which he marked by releasing some very dapper portraits from inside his Cheshire family home. And listen to this, folks. He has just turned 90 years old. Roach has well and truly defied the odds by playing the role of Weatherfield ladies' man Ken Barlow for an astonishing 62 years, during which time he got through 3 different wives and 4 marriages. What they must put in the pints at the Rovers to keep that youthful figure. My goodness, 90 years old. Happy birthday, William Roach. You are a true original. Bev Turner, Benjamin Butterworth, Carol Malone, do stand by, because coming up, as Jacob Rees-Mogg goes to war with lazy civil servants, should employees face a pay cut for working from home? That and much more as the Superstar panel return for the Media Buzz after 10:30. But next, the announcement that will send Harry and Meghan reeling. The Duchess of Sussex's estranged father, Thomas Markle, drops a huge bombshell after the break and gives his verdict on the prince's frankly ridiculous claims that the Queen isn't being protected. You won't want to miss this.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewbury, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewbury, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back, and joining me now from Mexico, Meghan Markle's estranged father, Thomas, here to make a world-exclusive announcement that will rock the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, which could see him coming face-to-face with the pair in the very near future. I can reveal Thomas has taken the momentous decision to fly to London for the first time to celebrate a historic moment in the history of the monarchy, the Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebrations next month. The 77-year-old will be crossing the Atlantic from his home with GB News and is hoping this grand gesture will allow him to reunite with Meghan, as well as meet his son-in-law Harry, his grandchildren Archie and Lilibet, and his new royal relatives for the first time. Thomas Markle, great to speak to you. It's even better to hear the news that finally, after missing the wedding all those years ago, you're going to be coming to the UK next month for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebrations. Talk to me.
I'm looking forward to it, and I'm going to show my respects for the Queen, and I'm going to make sure that the Queen understands that my entire family respects the Queen and the royals, and we admire them, and we want them to know that's how we feel about them, and that's how we feel about England.
Thomas, would you like to meet with Prince Charles in particular when you are here in London?
I really would like to meet with Prince Charles and thank him for walking my daughter down the aisle, and also just to meet and talk with him, because I think we have a lot in common now. We've pretty much both been ghosted by our children. So, yeah, I'd really enjoy talking to him. If that's possible, that would be great.
And Thomas, I guess you're reaching out to all members of the royal family to try and get some time with them.
That's right. Anyone I can talk to. I want them to understand that we have no ill feelings about the royals whatsoever. We have nothing but respect and admiration for them. And the same feeling goes for all the British people. And actually, I want to thank the British people because they've been reaching out to me now and extending their feelings for me. And I really appreciate that.
Thomas, the big question, of course, is whether Harry and Meghan will be in London too. We don't know at this point. Are you expecting them here? And if so, would you like to meet with them in London too during the Platinum Jubilee celebrations?
Interesting question. I'm getting the feeling that if they know I'm coming, they won't be coming. But if they do come, I would love to. I would love to reach out and speak with them and try to figure out what went wrong and how we can repair it. I don't see that happening, but I certainly would like to try.
Thomas, I want to play you what Prince Harry had to say about the Queen's Jubilee, because he seems to make out that it's actually to do with security as to why he might not make the trip. Let's have a look. This was from NBC's Today Show last week.
With her, it was great. It was just so nice to see her. You know, she's on great form. She's always got a great sense of humour with me, and I'm just making sure that she's, you know, protected and got the right people around.
Well, she won't be bored of the Jubilee, will she?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so. she's had a few Jubilees now, so everyone is slightly different. But
yeah. Do you think you'll come?
I don't know yet. There's lots of things with security issues and everything else. So this is what I'm trying to do, trying to make it possible that, you know, I can get my kids to meet her.
In these moments, do you ever feel your mom's presence?
Yeah, no, for me, it's constant. It has been over the last 2 years.
So, Thomas, that was him talking about Princess Diana, which I want to pick up on. But can we speak first about the Queen? He says he might not be able to come for security reasons. I mean, you're coming. Is this gutless of him?
I think it's ridiculous. He knows how much security they're going to have. So, I mean, he's totally safe in that situation. And my God, he's going off to the games, which would be far more dangerous for him than to be at the Jubilee. So I don't understand half the things he says, and I have so little respect for that man that. I think he's an idiot, and to talk to first of all, to come over, to fly all the way over, and not bring the children, that's ridiculous. First of all, most mothers don't leave a 9-month-old child behind. They usually hold on to that child till the child gets a little older. That's one thing that really bothers me. But the idea that they won't feel safe is ridiculous.
So you think Meghan should have travelled to the Invictus Games with Archie and Lilibet and actually introduce them to the Queen, for goodness sake, because they claim they love the Queen so much.
Absolutely.
I mean,
not bringing the children was like another slap in the face to the Queen. It was very rude and the wrong thing to do. It makes no sense at all. And the other thing is not seeing these children makes no sense at all as well. So here again, I don't know whether it's Meghan or whether it's Harry, but the Queen should have every right to see her great-grandchildren, and I should have the right to see my grandchildren.
Yeah. Well,
so if they show up, I hope they bring the kids.
And Thomas, I want to talk to you about what Prince Harry had to say about Prince Charles and Prince William, or actually, it might be better to phrase it as what he didn't have to say about Prince Charles and Prince William. Take a look at this.
Family at home, do you miss them?
Yes, I think, especially over the last 2 years, for most people, have they not missed their family, right? The inability to be able to get home and see them. Of course, that's a huge part of it.
But do you miss your brother, your dad?
Look, I mean, for me, at the moment, I'm here focused on these guys.
Thomas, he wouldn't even say their name.
I don't understand their differences or what's happening. I guess his chickens are more important than his family. That's where he seems to spend his time now, with his chickens. So, and his bicycle. So I don't know what their fallout was. I think he owes an apology to his father. He certainly owes an apology to the Queen, and Meghan as well should be making the same apologies.
Do you feel like Meghan has purposefully driven Prince Harry away from his family?
Yes.
Why?
Yes, I do. I don't know why, but I think she had something to do with him moving out or taking her away. Actually, apparently the story was he was taking her away from things that were upsetting her. I don't buy that story. I never have since it came out. The suicide story and so forth. I don't buy that at all. I think they were looking for some reason to get out. I don't know why my daughter, who should have loved the idea of becoming a part of the royals and reaching out and shaking hands with children all day long and meeting people and greeting people. It's what an actor does too, and she would have been so loved had she stayed and done that. Instead, she takes Harry away. They hold up in a big house with no company, never have any company. They just hold up in a big house and do nothing.
No. And Thomas, it means you still haven't met your grandchildren. Do you hold out hope?
No.
That will happen?
I do hope that I will get to see my grandchildren. I don't know. I don't know what the circumstances will be. I don't want them to be hostile circumstances. I want them to be friendly circumstances. So I don't know how that will happen at this point.
And Thomas, how worried are you about Prince Harry's book? Because what I'm hearing is that he is preparing to not be very nice about his own father, Prince Charles, Prince Charles's wife, Camilla, and his brother, Prince William. Obviously, the suspicion would be that he might also be not very nice about you in his book. Are you prepared for that? How do you feel about it?
I welcome it. I'm not very nice about him. I'd take him on any time. He's like a child. He follows my daughter around like a child. He's not a man. You can tell me he was in the military. I don't believe it. I think he's kind of a wuss and always will be. And he's got a brother that's a real man, and he's got a father that's a real man. But I don't think he's ever grown up.
Donald Trump, Thomas, says that Harry has been whipped by your daughter. Whipped was the word that he used. Do you agree with his assertion?
Well, that's the only time I'll ever agree with Donald Trump. But yeah, I do agree with Donald Trump.
Thomas, well, look, We are so excited about having you in the UK for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. Let me tell you, the British people are with you. They want to meet you. This is going to be a really exciting time next month, Thomas, so I cannot wait for you finally to be on that plane.
Well, I hope they like me. Like I said, I'm a country boy. So I hope I fit in, and I really want to come, and I do want to show my respect and my love and admiration for the Queen and for the royal family, and all of Britain.
We cannot wait to have you.
And thank you so much.
No, it will be great. I'm really looking forward to having you next month. Thomas Markle, live from Mexico. Thank you so much, Thomas. We'll see you next month. But coming up, did attempts to smear scientists who went against the mainstream media COVID narrative, such as those who authored the Great Barrington Declaration, cause unnecessary death and destruction? Oxford Professor Sunitra Gupta, one of the authors of that maligned report, is uncancelled at 10:40 and responding to Matt Hancock's evidence in my lockdown inquiry last week. But next, should employees who work from home have their wages slashed? Jacob Rees-Mogg says yes, and so do I. But what do my superstar panel think? We'll find out after the break as the Media Buzz continues.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewbury, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewbury, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question.
That's two questions, actually. That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Let's return to tomorrow's News Tonight now on our Media Buzz. Lots more front pages in. The Eye lead with an exclusive report on what they're calling the PM's bonfire of policies. According to an analysis by the paper, 22 of the 33 bills that were announced in the Queen's speech a year ago are currently in jeopardy. Among the laws facing delay or abandonment are the plans to build more homes, protect victims of crime and keep children safe online. The Daily Telegraph has another disturbing revelation about a horrifying side effect of lockdown. Along with social distancing, it's been linked by health chiefs to a surge of hepatitis cases in young children. Officials said a lack of exposure to common infections during children's formative years because of pandemic measures may be fueling a global outbreak of the deadly liver disease, which, by the way, I was warning about 2 years ago. On the front of the Daily Mirror, a single chilling word, bloodbath. NHS worker Dolette Hill, who is also a grandmother, was one of 4 members of the same family found stabbed to death in a horrific knife attack in southeast London earlier this morning. A man in his late 20s has been arrested on suspicion of murder. The Times leads with passport shambles threatens holidays. According to the paper, summer holidays are at risk because of huge delays in processing passports, with ministers warning people to get applications in as soon as possible. Over 5 million people have delayed renewing their passports during, here we go again, the pandemic lockdown. It's ruined so many things. And The Guardian reports that Health Secretary Sajid Javid has been urged to allow pharmacies to dispense substitute versions of medicines. As it emerges, women are having to travel hundreds of miles to seek hormone therapy products. The paper also reports, and we'll get into this more in a moment, that the country's top civil servant is privately warning Boris Johnson against forcing Whitehall staff back to the office, causing efforts to try and end working from home scare tactics. Well, I am loving these scare tactics, and we're going to get to this now with my superstar panel. Carol Malone, Benjamin Butterworth and Bev Turner here tonight. With the pandemic well and truly over in the UK, you would have expected lazy work-from-home civil servants to put their trousers back on, switch off loose women and get back to Whitehall. Yet they're still lazing across their sofas unbelievably. Now, Jacob Rees-Mogg, Minister of Government Efficiency, has taken the privileged blob to task and seemingly threatened home-dwelling staff with pay cuts and even the sack if they don't get back to the office, which I think is a great thing. He cheekily left these notes on the empty desks of Whitehall staff in order to get them back to work. They read, "Sorry you were out when I visited. I look forward to seeing you in the office very soon." Benjamin Butterworth, these folk get paid more money because they work in London. That's the whole point. They should have their wages slashed, shouldn't they, if they keep refusing to return to the office?
Well, obviously, lots of civil servants don't work in London, so that would only be one type. But actually, I think those people who are working at home should get a higher salary because they're using their own utilities, they're using their own lighting, their own desk space, they're using all of their own electricity and water and everything else.
Have you lost the plot?
And they're saving the government money by doing that, so it's only fair that they're reimbursed.
Deliberately provocative.
No.
Do you actually believe that?
Absolutely. And do you know what? The irony of Jacob Rees-Mogg, a Tory cabinet minister, saying they should get back to their desks. Well, it was a Tory government that cut all the desks in the coalition years, so there aren't even enough places for them to sit anyway.
Carol?
I want to hit him, actually.
We don't believe in violence on this show.
I can do it, I can do it subliminally. You know, some government departments, civil service departments, have 6% of people in the office. You have the DVLA, 2,000 people working from home. People can't go to work because they can't get licences. We've just seen the papers. People can't get passports. You know, these people, I mean, I don't understand why the government and Rees-Mogg is just asking them to come back to work. Why don't they insist that they go back to the office? And if they don't want to do it, sack them. You know, Richard Littlejohn...
Oh, yeah, that'll really make things run smoother, won't it?
Made a very good point in his column the other day. The Indian civil service runs much like ours. And he's just saying there's probably lots and lots of very well-educated, very hard-working Indians who would love the chance to come and work in our civil service here. Why not?
What's such a shame, though, for many years, working mums particularly, but just working parents, have been asking for flexible working so we can get away from the idea that we have to be in the offices all the time. Some good should come of this pandemic. For goodness sake, we need some good to have come from it, right? And if that means that employers are a little bit more flexible with working mums and parents, so be it. But the problem now is we've got so many people who don't want to go back to work.
People are taking the proverbial.
They are taking the proverbial. And that actually, we risk the benefits of lockdown, or the benefits of lockdowns in terms of working practices being discussed and forgotten.
Why are you so agitated by that,
because,
Benjamin?
you know, you sit here and talk about the cost of living crisis that's going on. Now, getting to work, whether it's petrol or the trains can cost £2,000 for a year's ticket.
And what about all of those people who are going to lose their job if everyone stays at home?
There are a lot of people who are saying, first of all, the point that Bev talks about, if they've got young kids or if they care for someone that has a reason to be cared for, it's helpful. But a lot of people don't want to go back to the office because it could save them £2.5 grand.
You want one of those weird little societies
you would rather
where you sit at your house with a laptop typing away and, I'm too scared to go to the office. Oh, but I will go to a gay nightclub with 5,000 people. It's just ludicrous. We've got to get back to the office.
COVID has allowed people...
You think the economy should run around Pret, not around reality.
This virus has allowed people to think they're entitled to work from home. What you mentioned there about working mums is one thing. When you have a department that is run like the DVLA, which needs you to be in there, like the Passport Office, they should be in the office. And they get paid to be in the office.
If you were trying to make ends meet and you've got these terrible 8-10% inflation, if you could cut the cost of transporting to sit at your desk on your own working...
It's fine for you in your posh London mansion.
Yeah.
Think about people who are trying to work in small flats, who are trying to work in... You just don't get it.
I won't be lectured by a millionaire
You're fine.
TV
You've got your Apple laptop and you're fine.
When you have security guards, when you have cleaners, when you have the people who work in supermarkets...
I don't yet need security guards.
They can't work from home. Why should a highly-paid
And also, it's just about how society works. You want some sort of weird, twisted society where we all stay at our home and this is all we do all day. Tap, tap, tap. No, I want to talk to people. I want to see people.
You sit in a hired office on your own,
buy
don't you?
things.
You said the other week you hire a desk and you sit there on your own.
I hire an office so that I can be around people and get out of my house because I do not believe in the WFH culture.
You sit there on your own. You don't go into the Mail Online office.
And here we are working. Here we are working all together.
At GBNews. I mean, that's the most ridiculous gotcha ever. Oh, you hire an office, so somehow
just sit on your own.
You don't believe it. Yeah, but I get out to an office and there's other people at the wider office. Anyway, what a ridiculous argument. Just when you thought the ambulance blockers and petrol snatchers at Extinction Rebellion couldn't get any more callous, here they are advocating for, brace yourself, I actually can't believe I'm about to say this, the mass culling of our greatest generation. So let me introduce you to Jessica Townsend, a climate terrorist and co-founder of Exile subgroup Writers Rebel, who was found guilty of criminal damage after graffiti in the Westminster office of the Global Warming Policy Foundation in September 2020. She's got a habit of making hysterical comments about a so-called green apocalypse.
In the year 2100, Iris is going to be 80 years old. I hope that she will still be alive. I'm a member of Exile, and when I first heard the news about the climate and ecological emergency, I felt so much grief for my children because I felt I'd conned them into believing that they could have a regular life, and actually what I know about the science means that they maybe can't. What I don't understand about climate deniers is why they think raking in the petrochemical money is so much more important than my grandchild and their children and their grandchildren.
Oh, isn't she so lovely? She just cares about protecting her grandchild, right? Wrong. This purple-haired pillock has outdone herself, making the sickening suggestion that we should kill off boomers, that slur, that revolting slur used for anyone born between 1946 and 1964 that the woke love to throw around. Now, she's actually been quoted in the Sunday Telegraph as proposing in a WhatsApp group among Extinction Rebellion colleagues, how about euthanizing boomers as they caused problems and are such a big part of population? First to go, rich boomers. If they start with rich, they'll never get to me. Now, Townsend tried to claim the comment was a joke made in response to an article suggesting the young should pay for climate mitigation as they are the ones benefiting from it. She also pointed out that she was soon to be turning 60 herself. I'm sorry, but euthanizing boomers is not something to joke about, especially when many in this age group have been forced to contend with their imminent death by COVID scaremongers for the past 2 years. Jessica, for the love of God, next time you think about using glue to stick yourself to the tarmac, use it for your mouth instead. Bev Turner, Benjamin Butterworth, Carol Malone, do stand by, because coming up, should all A-list celebrities shell out for a menopause mentor? The Hollywood wokey who made that suggestion is in the running for tonight's greatest Britain and Union jackass. But next, was there really no alternative to lockdown, as Matt Hancock claimed on My Lockdown Inquiry last week? That was his justification for smearing great scientists like Professor Sunitra Gupta, co-author of the Great Barrington Declaration. Well, she's going to react in Uncancelled in a matter of seconds. First, though, here's what's coming up tomorrow.
Coming up on Dan Wootton tonight, why are only Western nations being vilified for past outrages? Madness of Crowds author Douglas Murray sought to discover the answer to this question in his important new book, The War on the West. He'll reveal his findings on the woke mission to warp history live. Plus, Nigel Farage and Darren Grimes give their unfiltered takes on the issues that matter to you, and I'll break down the headlines with my superstar panel, including Daily Star editor and current columnist Dawn Neestham and conservative commentator Calvin Robinson. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
But it's time now for Uncancelled. And this is where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. And joining me tonight is not only one of the world's leading infectious disease epidemiologists, but the victim of a vicious smear campaign designed to punish those who refuse to submit to the mainstream narrative about lockdowns. The brilliant Professor Sunetra Gupta is the co-author of the Great Barrington Declaration, the open letter signed by nearly 50,000 medical minds calling for an alternative to damaging COVID restrictions. Now, I wanted Sunetra on because last week in my lockdown inquiry, the former Health Secretary Matt Hancock vigorously defended his crippling COVID laws and claimed there was no alternative to harmful lockdowns.
But the critical point about lockdown is that it was necessary until the vaccine could make us safe. The forecasts of increased cases and increased deaths, the problem wasn't the forecast, the problem was that the forecasts were coming true. And the costs of inaction, and we could see that the costs of inaction were going to be absolutely enormous.
What I'm not getting is any sense of regret about what the British public were put through at times unnecessarily.
The word that I disagree with in your question there is unnecessarily.
Well, to respond, Professor Sunetra Gupta. Professor Gupta, was there really no alternative to lockdown, as Matt Hancock so confidently claimed last week, despite very vigorous questioning by yours truly?
That is pure hubris, of course, on his part. What we didn't know 2 years ago is the extent to which lockdown would actually work to slow the spread of COVID. We had several things we didn't know. But one thing we did know is that lockdowns would cause a lot of harm. And today we're looking at, what is this? I've just got the figures here. 250 million more people may be plunged into extreme poverty. So those are things we knew. What we didn't know is whether lockdowns would have any effect on COVID infections. 2 years later, we do know. And the reason we know is because the models which incorporated that assumption have failed to predict what would happen when restrictions were released. That indicates that that assumption was incorrect. In other words, what we saw in terms of the course of the pandemic was hardly affected by lockdowns. Lockdowns did have an effect on endemic diseases, and we're seeing some of those effects now, some of which are quite unfortunate. But as far as COVID goes, I don't think there's much evidence. I would say there's evidence now that the lockdowns did very little to stop the spread of infection. And because we didn't institute a focused protection of those who are vulnerable, it did very little to stop the deaths of those unfortunate people.
And Professor Gupta, what is so frustrating for me, and I'm sure you share this, is the narrow-mindedness when it comes to having this discussion, given the wealth of data that is now out there. I mean, I just put up the front page, or a few moments ago, put up the front page of the Daily Telegraph tomorrow, talking about this international hepatitis outbreak in children now, and all of this was predicted. I mean, I remember speaking to folk like you very early in 2020 who said there are going to be all of these costs of lockdowns on our health because of a lack of natural immunity. And it's happening now, and there still seems to be a complete tin-aired approach from our leaders that lockdowns were the right thing.
What is really unfortunate, and wasn't necessarily clear to us then, but should have been really, is that lockdowns would have a disproportionate effect on the endemic diseases. So those are the ones that disappeared. But because epidemic diseases are at a, they have a lot of catching up to do in terms of getting enough people immune so that their spread is restricted, lockdowns actually do very little to stop that process. What they do, as I said, is they knock out the endemic diseases, and then you have problems because, and this is something we teach our undergraduates, when you delay the age at which you first get infected, you often have more severe symptoms. So this, I'm not saying it's absolutely, it's confirmed, but this hepatitis example is it's a very plausible explanation for why we're seeing this. And we should just treat it as a warning, as another negative consequence. But, let's face it, there were other consequences that were absolutely obvious and that we were watching unfold in front of us. I mean, people were being sent back to their villages in India, and unable to make the few rupees that would allow them to have a meal that day, which meant they died en route. So some of these things are a little bit more complex and require us to understand endemic disease and all of that nonsense. But, really, at the end of the day, the fact that lockdowns would kill poor people was, I think, pretty obvious right at the start.
And just finally, do you feel like, Professor, you have got your voice back now? Because Hancock was one of the folk who tried to smear the Great Barrington Declaration, and there was certainly a move by the entire medical establishment to shut you down and to shut down your brilliant co-authors, Martin Kulldorff and Dr. Jay Bhattacharya as well, despite your immense wealth of qualifications.
Well, the truth at the end of the day is not so much whether we were right or wrong or, what actually would unfold. It's that we were shut down.
Yes.
It's not... There's no pleasure to be taken in accepting or saying or that we, were in the main correct. There's nothing to be gained from that. It's just really unfortunate that we're shut down. And what's also horrific is the tone, the lack of etiquette that continues to prevail, particularly in the social media, among academics. I think it's high time the universities, the Royal Society took measure, adopted some sort of policy that stopped people from engaging in this absolutely abhorrent behaviour.
I know, to try and shut academics like yourself down. Well, Professor Sunetra Gupta, you're very much uncancelled always on this show, and it is so great to speak to you tonight. Thank you so much, Professor. But it's time now to reveal today's greatest Britain and Union jackass. My superstar panel back. Carol Malone, your Union Jackass nominee.
The jackass, first of all.
Oh, sorry, let's start positive.
Okay.
Start positive.
Okay.
Sorry, I was wrong. Greatest
My
Britain.
one is Tyson Fury. He was celebrating yesterday after knocking out Dillian White in front of a crowd of 94,000 people at Wembley. He announced his retirement, but there's already talk of a £100 million fee to get him back in the ring. Love him. He's a great showman, and he's a credit.
And I think he had an amazing party, which I think we can take a look at.
He was at a pub yesterday. He was drinking non-alcoholic beer, which is odd.
Wow.
But anyway.
One heck of a celebration. Oh, yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Look at that.
There he goes.
The King. Benjamin Butterworth.
My greatest Britain is Angela Rayner.
Sorry, no, we said we're doing Greatest Britain first, not Union Jackass, sorry.
My greatest Britain is Angela Rayner, and that's for being so brazen as to not only uncross but also cross her legs.
Beverly Turner, your nominee.
I can't believe I'm saying this, particularly after that interview with Sunetra Gupta about the last 2 years, but my greatest Britain today is actually Boris Johnson.
Wow.
Hey.
Because he could have stayed quiet when the papers raised this story of Angela Rayner crossing her legs and uncrossing them. That will stick with her, and he didn't. He came out and he said, this is...
Yes, he was very much on her side.
It's not in my name, and I distance myself, and for that, I applaud him.
OK, well, Greatest Britain, it's got to be Tyson Fury, doesn't it, after the weekend? Congratulations. Union Jackass time now, though. Carol Malone, yours.
Mine's Gwyneth Paltrow. At a time when women in this country are meeting in car parks to swap their HRT, when many menopausal women are on the brink of suicide because there's a worldwide shortage of HRT, the vacuous Gwyneth Paltrow is saying she's going to recruit a mentor to get her through the trials of menopause, together with a doctor and another medicine expert.
OK, Benjamin Butterworth, your nominee very quickly.
Mine is British homeowners and NIMBYs. Prices of houses have gone up £19,000 in 3 months, and people who've already got houses sit there blocking people like me getting them while their views of the golf course are distorted.
Oh, diddums to you and your posh flat. I
don't have a posh flat.
You do have a posh flat.
Move on.
OK, my jackass is 26-year-old accountant Jay Patel. He sued his middle-aged boss for age discrimination, and he lost, and she told him he was too demanding.
He is my winner.
Generation of millennials.
He is today's Union Jackass. I love it. This is a good victory for common sense. Bev Turner, Benjamin Butterworth, Carol Malone, thank you so much. I'm back tomorrow from 9 p.m. Good night.
Good evening. Alex Deakin here with your latest weather update from the Met Office. Pretty chilly tonight, so a fresh start tomorrow. Many of us having a dry day, and some places having a sunny day, but others will be quite cloudy. High pressure is in control of our weather, but it's sitting up to the north, and around it the winds are coming down from the north, hence why it is going to be pretty chilly overnight. Not too strong, the winds, though, and as we have clear skies for the majority, that will allow those temperatures to tumble. We will see increasing cloud over northern Scotland, a few showers here and there across the far northeast, but for most it will be a dry night. Temperatures, as I said, will be falling away. 3 or 4, that's towns and cities. Rural spots not far off freezing, with some places dipping a touch below. So a cold start to Tuesday, but for many, a dry and a bright start, quite a bit of sunshine around. Quite cloudy over eastern Scotland. That cloud will spread through central Scotland, northeast England, with a few showers likely here in the morning. That cloud thickening as it pushes south into parts of the Midlands and eastern England during the day. Under the cloud, feeling quite cold. Temperatures just 9 or 10 at best, but with some sunny spells further south and west. Mid-teens with light winds in the sunny spells. Shouldn't feel too chilly, but temperatures will again drop off through Tuesday evening quite sharply under the clear skies. Any showers fading away. And again, just a hint of blue there on the chart, northern England, parts of Scotland. So again, a frosty start for some on Wednesday morning. Again, by and large, another fine day. But again, it will be eastern parts that keep a lot of cloud through the day. Maybe the odd light shower, but the vast majority dry. A brighter day for eastern Scotland, southern Scotland, and some good sunny spells for Wales and the southwest. And again, a bit of sunshine sees those temperatures up into the mid-teens, but the eastern areas staying just 9, 10, 11 Celsius. The high pressure, though, is sticking around, sitting across the UK for much of this week, keeping things largely dry, but with a continued risk of nighttime frost.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewbury, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewbury, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question, Chris.